if I start from my right and I go clockwise around the screen and I end in the center, then maybe you can just give a short sentence about who you are and what interests you about this topic. Is that okay? Okay, first person to my right is Julian, please.
Hi, I'm Julian. I'm one of the artistic directors at Circus. What interests me about it's all a new world, isn't it? So I'm just really interested to hear other people's perspectives on it, really. And that's what I've been doing over the last few weeks, just chatting to all sorts of people. Still kind of feeling like the dust needs to settle a bit before I decide which way we're going. But yes, yeah, interesting stuff.
Great, thank you. The next person is Ellis Watson.
Hi, I'm Alice. I run a school called School of Larks, and I'm just starting to do some research on improvisation and performance with aerial and multidisciplinary performance. Yeah, and I'm interested in, I think last time, in the last meeting, there was some talk about kind of how performance is going to look and outside, and there were some interesting ideas. I think someone shared a link to a guy's Facebook who has amazing ideas of cars and circles with the headlights, and so I've just been thinking about that and the use of parks and things like that, and how we can adapt.
Great, thanks, Alice. Next one, Jonathan Priest.
Yes, my name is Jonathan Priest. I am a teacher at Circus Media, where Kate is actually in the other room. I've been there for a while. I've taught before in Stockholm in Sweden. I'm also a circus artist, a circus researcher, and I'm interested in narrativization, or like how that is occurring in the wider sense. I think I just wanted to echo what Julian was saying about the dust hasn't settled, and I think there's something, we're presented on many fronts with different narratives of what's going on, even though that narrative has not yet concluded. The dust hasn't settled, and I think that's a worry, in the sense that a story, you can't conclude a story before it's over. So I think I'm also interested in how that works with collaboration with circus and narrative, and how those two things, one is finished and one is unfinished. So I think there's a kind of larger way of thinking about this, and how that works in a sort of micro level when circus meets other forms. So I think, yeah, that's what I'm interested in, or maybe, I think.
Thanks, Jonathan. Ali Williams.
Hi, I'm Ali Williams. Was formerly artistic director with No Fit State Circus, now doing my own work as a freelancer, mainly in the outdoor sector, putting circus into outdoor shows. Yeah, I don't know really what I'm doing here, because I just feel like, yeah, I don't know. So I'm just here to kind of contribute, listen, and there's so many things that we could be discussing that I don't, I just feel a bit lost at the moment and wondering what the fuck's going on and what will go on. Same as pretty much everyone else, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Hit the nail on the head there. We're all in the boat. Dea Burkett. Your microphone is still muted, Dea.
Sorry, I'm Dee. I'm from Circus 250, and we create and tour very small circus shows in Ireland and UK, mostly. And what I'm interested in is how we can use circus to support people's coming out of this, and to how we can assess what people will need. So I'm not so interested in what works for us, but how we can make things work better for audiences and participants, and how we assess as we work under this circus with purpose. So we're not just about performance, we try to look at meeting need. So what is the needs that we could help meet?
Thanks, Dee. Sorry for mispronouncing your name.
No problem.
Hi, Lissy.
Hi, I'm Lissy. I'm the Executive Director of Memra. I'm here, I guess, because there's like two separate things going on for Memra at the moment. Well, lots of things for all of us. But on the one hand, my colleague Sylvia in particular is desperate to get back to training. And we do acrobalance. You can't do that without physical contact. And the two people we work with most of the time are in Bristol and we're in London, and good God. But then at the same time, it was announced yesterday that we're creating like a short film for the space under the Culture in Quarantine kind of branding. And that's involved kind of 30 performers and a filmmaker and a director all working completely remotely. And it's been really interesting while that's been going on. So both of those things are true. And yeah, I wonder if there's some kind of like join between them.
Oh, that's very interesting. Cool. Victoria.
Hello, hi. So I've same experience that everybody about this kind of whole lockdown bonanza. Feeling like half of my job running the company is supporting the company's life and the performers and the practitioners. But the reason I started the company was as an artist. And kind of in this whole period of panic, I've been involved in lots of conversations around strategy, around health and safety, around programming, etc., etc. And I just kind of thought, you know, I just want to talk about making work and creating work and kind of just reminding myself what I was passionate about. So starting to experiment with some of the performers that I work with regularly at a distance, and it's starting to reveal things to me, and I'm just interested in talking to people about their experiences of working in that way. I definitely feel that there's things that I'm learning that will influence how I work in the future, but yeah, that's my little ramble.
Hello, we've got like a couple more people joining us. We're just doing a very quick round, like let's say 30 seconds of just introduce yourself and say why this topic of creation in the future and collaboration in different ways interests you. I'll call you up one by one as you appear on my screen. So we're at Katie now.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Walker. I'm Head of Marketing and Sales at Theatre Royal Stratford East, and joined the board of Upswing just a month ago in April. So partly here just to try and get under the skin a bit more of kind of circus and aerial arts world, and just to be part of the conversation about how to create work in this kind of new socially distanced chapter.
Great, thanks. Felicity?
Hello, hi, I'm Felicity from Director of Cirque Columbia. I've got another hat as well, which is co-founded Circo Pratoris, which is now Colombia's national school in Cali and Bogota. So the question, how do we create the future, is really fascinating, because Cirque Columbia is totally unviable. And what will the future look like? Because we normally go over there or they come over here, and that's not possible right now. Plus as well, all our Colombian artists have absolutely no safety net. So we're questioning, will they be able to maintain themselves as artists during this time? There's no emergency grants, there's nothing out there. The school is actually becoming really useful as a safe space for those that don't have home and stuff. But anyway, that's why I'm interested. And I'm really thankful that you created this forum, Vicky. Hats to Ricky. Yay.
Great, thanks. Let's go to Nicole.
Hi, I'm interested because, well, Amy and I ran.
Oh, we lost you, Nicole. Your video's gone and your microphone's off.
Oh, hey.
There you are.
Oh, great.
Try again.
I don't know what happened there. Amy and I ran Laverack Circus, and we just got, well, we were before COVID developing a new show, and now we're in lockdown and cities apart, and we've got funding to keep trying to develop this show, but with the use of technology and screen, and it's all a big mystery as to what's going to turn out like and what's going to be. So I'm interested.
Lovely, thanks. Phil?
Hi everyone, I'm Phil Hargreaves. I'm the creative producer at Data in Derby, which is the Midland Centre for...
Phil, you disappeared there for a second.
I went off, I'm back.
Yeah.
It kicked me out of the whole meeting, that was weird. I am, which is the Midland Centre for Dance, Circus and Outdoor Performance, and we're also the creative lead for Feste, which is the annual International Outdoor Festival. I'm kind of here just as a fly on the wall to absorb some of the experiences that people are having during the current time, and how in the future, if we reopen, how we might be able to be of some sort of assistance back to the wonderful artistic world that we massively rely on for lots of things.
Great, thanks. And I think Marianne?
Hi, I'm Marianne from Circus Cirkör. We're an all-women troupe of circus theatre performers. Vicky used to work with us a long time ago. And by now we should be majorly on tour. We had an amazing summer of gigs sorted out, but we're trying to be really creative in different ways. We've done loads of workshops online for different festivals that are paying us to do that instead of performing. And we're doing little bits of street theatre around where I live for local community. I think in a way we're all creatives, and this is the chance to really have a rethink. If anyone can come up with ideas to survive this, us lot can, because creative thoughts are streaming in at a ridiculous rate to us all as we sit here. So collaboration, yeah, let's see what we can do.
Great, thanks everyone. I kind of like, in listening to a lot of what people are saying, there's a couple of things that have occurred to me that I'd like to maybe present as maybe a provocation to start a discussion. And one of them is this idea of being incredibly aware of living in the present moment, that the dust has not settled. We don't know the ending to the story. So, and it's a funny one, because in some ways that's always the way it's been, but we've been quite comfortable in always feeling like there's a normal and there's an expectation that we can always achieve the thing that we expect to achieve. I was really, I was watching a documentary earlier this week, which was filmed last year, and it's called Stop Filming Us. And it was filmed in Congo, and basically it was during the Ebola crisis. And the way that the Ebola crisis affected their society is exactly how COVID-19 has affected our societies in the Western world. And people were so suspicious about this being a conspiracy theory from foreigners that they actually burnt down one of the medical centers, which was there for testing people for Ebola. And it made me kind of suddenly very aware of the kind of tangibility of the reality that we live in, and how we're working in a way that now we're suddenly working within a present moment, which doesn't necessarily have a conclusive ending to it. So we have a huge amount more opportunities available to us to create a different reality of how we basically move forward with the creation process. I was wondering, has anybody got anything that they would like to say? Felicity and Jonathan, I saw Felicity first.
Hi. No, when you talk about dust not settled, then it sort of makes you think about making predictions, and I'm trying to avoid making predictions, but I keep thinking of what's going to come on the other side of this. And I think I often compare it in the circus world as to when the Iron Curtain came down and all the Russians flooded out, and suddenly we lost all the big group acrobats, because they suddenly found out, I mean, before you speak China, Russia, and some great Bulgarian teeter boards and stuff, because they'd make big groups because it was all supported by the state, and that was their normal. When the wall came down, they suddenly became mano a manos, and that's been the flood all over Europe, because it's more economically viable for a pair to make money that way. So I keep predicting that on the other side of this, big mid-scale touring, like we only have a minimum of 15 people on stage, that's just not going to be possible because of all the add-on costs and the visas. And I mean, already the surcharge, we used to pay £200, now it's £640 per artist. Do that by 20 on tour, that will be bing bing 12,000 before you book the hotel or paid the first breakfast and thought about fees and all that. So hi Charlie, that's Mr.
Cool.
Yeah, Medical Troop coming in. So that was one prediction I'm making. There's definitely is going to have a huge impact on the model we've got. Anyway, shut up now, Felicity. Next, Jonathan.
Yeah, let's go to Jonathan, and then we'll say hello to Charlie.
Yeah, it's the dust not settling, I think, is the thing. But I also wanted to ask this question about, I mean, within the sort of various narratives that are happening at the moment around this crisis, you know, there's this phrase of key workers, and I think that is a big question for us, in the sense that, you know, obviously I acknowledge there are key workers, but I think, you know, how going forward do we become key for people? You know, how is the arts key? I mean, there are many narratives and discourses around why arts are key, and many of those are kind of slightly suspect, I think. But I think we need to re-establish what is key about our work. And I think, well, in many ways, I think that actually what we represent is a kind of anti-narrativization of reminding people that it is chaos, it is ongoing, it is movement, it is going forward, and that we don't have an ending that is a nice, neat story for us to sort of tell each other. So I think, for me, the circus body is like that anyway. It's excessive, and it goes off track, it goes off story, it goes off piste. And I think that's an important thing, to think how that is key, how that idea of that excessive energy is key in collaboration and in creation.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm just going to let Charlie introduce himself very quickly, and then we'll go to Vicky and then Marianne.
Hello, I'm Charlie. I'm an acrobat with a company, Barely Methodical Troupe, and yeah, super intrigued about this creating-y stuff.
Okay, Vicky.
I was really struck by what Jonathan was saying about how is circus necessary and important, and I think there's a whole other conversation to have about that, and I think that's a space that probably will feed the next dialogue that we have, because that's a big topic. And I think the other thing that struck me about what you're saying is this idea of kind of chaos and resisting neatness. I found that in this early process of trying to make that I have at the moment, the idea of trying to make anything coherent and complete, I can't deal with that right now. I found actually it's been really nice to go into the space of just making for experimentation, exploration, and play, because actually that's not something I get a chance to do very often in what is the real world. And it's reminding me about that kind of quality of just anarchy that that I feel that I've been missing for a while, which is really interesting.
Thank you. We'll go to Marianne and then back to Jonathan.
I was really interested in that phrase that you used, anti-narrativization, because I think we are obviously, well, I am, and our company is obsessed by narrative. And right now, our big problem is gathering a crowd. And I think what we are going to have to concentrate on is a more sculptural approach to idea, so that people don't gather, so they grasp an image, even if it's a changing image, and then move on, and that we move with this. So a moving sculptural approach is where I think we'll have to head.
Very nice. Jonathan?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say that I think also this idea, what Vicky was saying about, you know, experimentation and play and things like that. And I think what's happening for a lot of people is they're finding themselves making work in their personal spaces. And I think that's a really important step, because I think one thing, once you remove the studio, or like the musology of the studio implies that in half an hour, another circus artist is going to arrive and do what you're doing. And I think you get that sense of the neutrality of the studio, I think sometimes can be the problem, in the sense that there's an inference of a factory setting, of like, I'm another sort of product of the circus discourse here, and I've got to do my bit and move on. So I think that making this work in our clutter, in our mess, is the original circus situation, where you've got excessive energy that tries to grab everything that it's got. What have I got to make a show out of? What is there here? And I think that's a really nice, that's a good outcome, I think.
Yeah, I would also like to just add a little, I think for me as well, one of the things that's been really on my mind is that the idea of creating on residency, and what I see a lot around me are people who have a lot more time than normal to kind of, what Vicky was saying, also just have this moment of being able to like really dive into research and exploration without having this goal-based 1 or 2 weeks in this residency space and another 2 weeks in this residency space. And there's something about this situation which kind of also leads me to think that perhaps that's something that we could discuss, is this idea of, does it mean that creation becomes more durational? That when you do a residency, does that mean you actually move somewhere for a year so that you're not traveling so much, for example? Lissy.
I just want to quickly, I'm not a parent, but the idea, like residencies are already quite difficult for member because of people having children. And so, I don't know, not everyone right now has more time. A lot of people have less. I just thought it was worth mentioning that. Just, you know, experiences are not universal.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, to be honest, I'm also looking at it from rose-tinted glasses because I'm one of the ones who hasn't got any at the moment. Vicky?
No, I totally agree. I think a lot of people are under pressure in lots of different ways. I know for me that every day is different. But I do feel that there is something to consider about the ways that we're finding to explore our practice that don't necessitate us leaving our home spaces. I'm finding that really, really interesting, because I think you know, last year I had massive caring responsibilities that kind of slowed me down in terms of being able to go and work in particular places. And actually coming back to that feeling again this year of not being able to go somewhere and actually looking at creating from the space that I'm in, I think is really interesting.
Yeah. I'll just go to Felicity and then Ali.
Hi, I'm finding it really, really impossible and difficult because we don't, I don't know, our creation is actually more curation. We curate what comes from the artist, and what comes from the artist starts from physicality. And just like one normal group act like the Banquina, there'll be in Medellin, Bogota and Cali. There's no physicality, so there's so much we can talk about. There's only so much that we can think, but we need to be together. And I'm stuck in France. So yeah, I find it really tough.
You just captured what I was about to say about being producing rather than being, you know, being the creative producer that facilitates the artist to make work as opposed to being the artist. It's not possible to do that from my home. And alongside that, I wanted to comment about, you know, without knowing what the future holds. I mean, a lot of discussion in outdoor arts has been going on about how we adapt our practice to make work that will be suitable for what comes next, but without having, you know, sort of future goggles on, we don't know what that is. So, you know, that for me is a really interesting question at the time. Do we carry on making work, albeit in your bathroom, or, you know, but what's the future of actually performing this stuff, and who are we making it for? I think it's a question that we need to think about. That's me.
Yeah. Marianne?
I just think everything's moving so fast, things change all the time. And right now, obviously, the only thing that's really working is online stuff. And I was talking the other day about this being a very raw, the way we're editing it is very different from what people are expecting to see, because we're also used to things being very edited perfectly and very smooth and having no edge. And the brilliance about what we're doing in a way as amateur filmmakers with the theatricality that we present is it gives almost a dangerous edge. And so that's one thing to hold on at the moment, that to forget the purity of professional editing and be really spontaneous about the way we present our online work. And then I also think we have to adapt to more venue problems rather than our idea and show problems, because as things are moving, already shops are opening, you know, starting next week. Things are going to move quite quickly, I think, and then they might go back again. But like street theatre, where you arrive in a different place every day and you never know what your audience or venue is going to be, this is how we have to adapt the whole time and make few plans in a way. Be open.
Jonathan, and then Vicky.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Ali, really, just about there are so many unknowns here, and I think, you know, I want to be careful about saying, you know, it's you know, we can look to more durational ways of operating, because that is a financial question. Like, going out of this position, it's a massive financial question, and the other comment about not everybody having that actual lockdown time is another thing. I mean, you know, it's important to recognize that we, like, this idea of being key is related to our being able to get funding, get support, get recognition, get public interest. So I think, you know, that's a big question which we don't have an answer for coming out of this. What support, you know, we can rationalize, you know, being more durational and research based and finding new ways to do things, but if the money is not there, it's going to be hard to do. I think being adaptable is the best way to think about it. I mean, also about curation. I mean, as a teacher, I'm curating at Circus Media at the moment. I'm curating like 6 different projects from different groups of students who are all struggling to make work in their separate locations and make a cohesive product online or a cohesive submission online. And that's been a really interesting process. And I see lots of challenges. I see lots of potentialities, but also there are lots of problems with what's missing from what we take to be Circus in those formats. I'm also concerned about how, you know, how we can operate through means of meaning production that we don't own. You know, I think that's another thing about producing work in digital formats and working remotely like this. We don't own these channels, and I think you know, that's another concern.
Vicky, yeah.
No, I was going to say, I think in response to that, Jonathan, I don't think actually, since a lot of circus practice has moved outside of that big top space, we don't own the spaces that we tend to perform in. You know, we're always mediated by other spaces and other agendas. And I've actually found that kind of direct relationship with, in an online space, to present opportunities. Actually, I was having a conversation with a venue that we were talking about working with, that they're almost starting to reevaluate what their relationship with artists is, because historically they've been the gatekeepers for the space that holds assembly, and now actually there are opportunities to form assembly outside of those spaces. So I do find that interesting, and it is similar to the practice that we have when we work in streets. We work in theatres, but we also work in libraries, in schools, in care homes, you know, all over the place. So it is interesting. And that idea of kind of projecting into the future, is absolutely impossible. Like, as soon as I start to think about what the future is, I find myself thinking about markets and finance and all that kind of stuff. And I know that that is absolutely essential to enabling us to do what it is that we do. But I'm kind of leaning into, because I can't predict, let me just not try and, you know, formulate what that might be, and let's just kind of go back to original practice.
Ali, did you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in response, and maybe I'm a real old cynic about this, but I just, like, Circus Online just does not do it for me. And, you know, how it feels to me like I'm watching a load of audition videos that I've been sent again. And I don't know how, you know, the thing about Circus is it's live and it's exciting and it's dangerous, and it's not any of those things on digital work, on a digital platform. So yeah, I'm sure you get lots of people who have lots of things to say about this, but you know, Circus is about being out in front of an audience, and that's for me where the work should lie, and where we should be thinking about how we create work that might be able to get in front of those audiences again, whether it's having a car with a rig on the top that drives down the streets of Splot and performs to people on their doorsteps, but you know, there has to be some alternative because by the time I've done this Zoom, I will not want to see my screen again today, basically. So sorry to say a bit negative about that, but that's my feeling about it. So I think we should be thinking about other ways to do stuff.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, I just see that Phil sent that link. I was just about to mention that one, but before we go to that, let's talk to Vicky and then Felicity, and then after that, Dee had something. So Vicky first.
Maybe Felicity first, and then Dee, and I can go last.
Okay.
Oh, I know. I totally agree with Ali about Circus Online. It's absolutely killing the art, and I don't know, I think it can almost work for theatre or opera either, because it's like paintings, but circus is sculpture. Circus is sculpture. You want to see the other side, you want to see the bottoms, and you want to flick sweat at people, and do have that slight risk of something maybe going wrong. Yeah, so I agree. Ali, you're my hero. Yes, I agree.
Okay, Dee, and then Vicky, and then Julian.
Hi. Yeah. I think that's a really important point, partly because not everyone has access to digital. It's about, what is it? They say 14% of people can't do Zoom, because they don't. And do we just ignore that 14%, or are actually, in fact, these 40% people we should be the most want to have to be working with? So that's the first thing. Secondly, there's a lot of stuff coming out recently. There was a piece this week in Arts Professional about how that kind of huge wave of engagement, or whatever you want to call it, with the digital world is just like going right like this. So it's already going down. There's so much. I think that word is so important that you said, Ali, dangerous. And I think we just got to embrace that word, dangerous. And I think in a sense, that's something that much circus has had a problem with for some time, when the kind of like going years back, you know, since we've moved a long way, thank God, from the head in the lion's jaw, what counts as dangerous? Because danger is at the heart. So it has to be creatively dangerous, has to be risky. So what does risk look like in a really risky situation that we're in? Does it look scary, or does it look good? Or how do we embrace risk without risking people?
Thanks, Dee. We'll go to Vicky, and then it's Julian, and then Nicole.
I was going to say that I completely disagree that circus can't exist online. I think it's just a different thing. You know, it's a different thing. It doesn't replace live work. I'm desperate to get back in the room with some artists and make some of that live work, and because it's the world that I understand, you know, but I have seen, and I think we're at the beginning of creating something that I feel like actually could be really interesting, but it's just a different thing.
Thanks.
Oh, and just a quick comment on the live. I think the digital space can be a live space. Actually, if you think about digital art, it is about interaction in the same way that live is about interaction. I'm not talking about live streaming pre-recorded work, but I've seen a couple of pieces online that have been live, almost one-on-one performances that have been incredibly engaging and felt incredibly interactive, more than some theatre that I've seen.
Thank you. Julian?
Sorry, yeah, I lost my train of thought a bit then. Yeah, I think for me it is about live. I think there's a certain amount of stuff that works well digitally. I mean, there was the Greek communal choir thing that went viral, and I think there was a certain excitement about that. But I think it's about bringing people together, and what I'm quite curious about right now is what people are going to need at the end of this. Like, I think people are going to need to come together. I think people are desperate. When you go outside and you clap the NHS, you know, I've got certain thoughts about that, but people are so desperate to make some sort of connection, and people are bringing their musical instruments out. There's a feeling of interaction. I think that's what people want to do, and I think the things that I've been quite interested in. Did anyone see Musical Ruth doing his Elton Wong thing? You know, he was going around the streets playing his piano, and Matt Pang did quite a nice street theatre thing where he was going around visiting different people. And I think those are the things that have really stood out for me. I think making something digitally that stands out is going to be really, really difficult. And I think it's quite a short term. I think that's the feeling now. Everything has to be digital, but that's not going to last that long. We will come outside. We may have to be spaced and distanced and all that stuff, but I still think we can perform to live audiences. And I think we can do that really soon. That's all.
Thanks, Julian. We'll go to Nicole and then Marianne.
I was just saying, I still feel really optimistic about circus and screen, and I think that we've all watched like a gripping film and something that seems like it's dangerous or edgy on our telly and stuff. So I think it's just learning how we can highlight parts of circus we want to show. That's it. I just feel really optimistic. I think it's exciting. It's a digital age.
Thanks, Nicole. Marianne? Your microphone is off.
Sorry, I don't think anyone's suggesting that digital should be instead in any way. And I just think it's the reality right now that we have different opportunities, and one of the opportunities now is digital. No one's saying that it's us who are completely immersed in theatricality that need to be watching it all the time. But I still think we have a need to perform as performers. Probably I'm itching to perform the whole time, and that is one way of being creative. But also the most important thing obviously is shared experience. And as we've been doing street theatre around our area, the build up with communicating with community WhatsApp groups before we go out, you know, all of that, it's like there is an ability to create our own theatrical happenings in a very local way. And I think that's perfectly possible too. And the whole way to create suspense, even with health and safety restrictions that are bound to be completely paranoid when we come out of this, is through theatricality and idea.
Thanks, Marianne. I'm going to go to Jonathan in a second, but I was just reminded from what we said earlier about this idea of, you know, creating and collaborating by distance from your home space rather than being in a working space. And then also what Marianne was just saying about WhatsApp groups in the local community and everything. And there's something very interesting about how it has made us more localized to our home area by being so distant from one another. And what does that change in the artistic process when we collaborate? Because we're not just collaborating with the body that we meet in the studio. Jonathan.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of, I don't know, I sort of fall in a kind of middle ground here, I suppose. I don't know. I think, you know, as a young fella, you know, went to see a band and then had to break in and climb in through the toilet window and then avoid the bouncers and then try and get to the front and get served at the bar, and all those experiences of going to see live work, that immersive thing, you know, like jostling for position and trying to, you know, all that stuff. I think we can't recreate that, I don't think. But my point of last time was about transposition, about how you can transpose circus into different spaces. And I see the digital thing as another space that which you could do that. I think we have to be clear about whether that transposition is happening and remaining there, or whether we're just making experiments in the digital medium for now, with a way of finding new things out about our practices that we can then do live. So I think there has to be an awareness of what the transposition is for. Are we doing it online to create a new online practice, or are we doing it for now to find out new things about our practices that we can then take that knowledge back onto the stage and back into a live situation? And I think that's an important distinction, and people have to make that distinction when they're working, whether they're trying to make a new form or whether they're trying to find new knowledge to take back into an older form. So that's one thing. As for the screen, I think, yeah, we've all seen scary movies and immersive, you know, plots and narrative. And I think that's my other question is, are we talking here about transposing circus into film, or are we or like digital media, or are we talking about transposing circus into narrative? Because I think a lot of that emotive power of film works through character and narrative and sense-making structures.
Yeah. In a minute, I'm going to go to Lissy and Dee, but I just want to add in to what Jonathan said, because one thing I found very interesting being in Sweden, since we haven't had a full lockdown, is that they, although for a while the professional training was restricted, there is the opportunity for the professionals to train in the hall now, and yet none of them are organizing performances outdoors. It's almost as if, because they can't do exactly what they would normally do in exactly the same spaces that they would normally do it, there is just like, it's ground to a complete halt. There's like one or two people who have put together a small group who perform at old folks' homes, but it's something that, because I'm all wrapped up in my high school work at the moment, that I'm a bit like, but why are people not doing something? Why is it so important to do the same thing that we did before in this question of waiting? Is it like a waiting for normality to return? Lissy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What's the idea of between people choosing between, well, I can't do, let's just wait until we can do what we want to do, or no, I've got to do stuff right now. I mean, they're both okay approaches. I just thought I might talk a little bit about the creation of the Sousa dance, since I'm finally able to talk about it, which I hope is going to finally be an enjoyable film for some audiences at least. That what we did was, it kind of came out of some morning workout sessions that everyone was doing together, is that Lena Johansson kind of came up with kind of a structure and a few different bits and pieces, and then there were a couple of like joint Zoom calls, and then everyone had to go away and make their own videos. And I think the downside of a lot of that was, it was a lot of work for Lena to kind of report back to people virtually about what they were doing and so on. So that was like really hard. And I think for some performers, it was very difficult to create just like on their own in their living room. But there was also stuff that was quite interesting about it, in that it meant that we could involve a lot more people than if we were getting people to come to a rehearsal room. So it was a method of actually just getting a lot of money out to a lot of freelancers as quickly as we could. Also, it meant, like, I'm in it. I'd never normally be in like a member production. That's ludicrous. But because it was like just a video in my own home, I felt like, oh, okay, I can be brave enough to do this. So I think sometimes there's an opportunity, yeah, for people to do stuff that they wouldn't normally do. I think like being away from people is an opportunity as well as like a kind of difficulty. Yeah, I just want to throw that out there as it might give us a chance to all get like, you know, more participation from people who wouldn't normally want to participate.
Thanks, Lissy. Dee?
Yeah, thanks. That's really interesting. I just wanted to add a quick question to Jonathan's list of really interesting questions. Is also, who are we doing it for? And it's very obvious, like if you're going to an old, you're going to a care home, you know who you're doing it for. But when you're doing it online, who are you doing it for?
Just let that one land for a little minute. And then Vicky, Alice, is that a hand? Yeah. So we go to Alice first and then Vicky.
So I've been in two different situations while in lockdown. I was living with my dad for 6 weeks, and then I had to leave and was then living with a flatmate. And the reason I say that is because during the time I was living with my dad, I was trying to create digital material for various different social media things. And for me, it was really hard because I didn't really have anyone to bounce ideas off. I didn't have anyone. He's terrible at filming, so I was having to film myself. And I found that really hard to sort of understand how to develop things, how good it was, having kind of no direction other than my own. And again, I guess it also feeds into this question of like, who is it for? If you're just doing it on your own in your own house, and then like, who are you putting that out to, and what do they want and need? And then I moved into a different place and was with a flatmate who's got nothing to do with any kind of anything to do with circus, but she was quite interested in helping me film and directing me as I was doing it, and it has made me a lot more confident, I guess, and a lot more able to develop my ideas. It's been a much better space for me to do things in. And I wonder if there's something in the question of collaboration where we can be helping each other out with these things, and we can be creating on our own, but we can also have people to share that with and to develop those ideas with.
Yeah, Vicky?
I was just gonna, it's really, Alice, we must be mentally vibing or something. No, I was just thinking about the creation process that we're going through at the moment, that it wasn't, it emerged from just a desire to work with each other. So two of the performers from Catch Me just actually contacted me and said, can we just do something? Because we were meant to be touring this summer and they just wanted to do something, and we've been playing around. And didn't really have an intention of making anything to perform, but actually we've had a few people who have approached us to do some version of that in a digital space. I'm still not sure whether we will do that or not, but what it really has done is it's enabled me to form some really, really strong collaborative relationships with the performers that I work with, because we're really having to think about how we work together. We can't do what we normally do, so we've had to go through this whole process of kind of actually really examining what it is to collaborate with each other, and how we can find a way to move forwards in an artistic language. It's not the space that I would normally want to create in, but I'm discovering so much from trying to work in that way that I would consider using it again as a structure to start a process in the future.
Great, I just see a message that in 5 minutes we're going to travel back to the main space. I think one of the things I'd just like to put in as well, that other people mentioned the architect, for example, who was mentioned the last time, who's been designing these different ways of performing with the cars and everything. I already have videos from some friends of mine who've already done a performance exactly like that in Greece about a week ago. Phil already put a link in the chat to Drive-In Circus, which happened in Germany last week, which we spoke about actually at one of the slow thinking sessions about a month ago, maybe now. So things are happening really fast in terms of experimentation about how to not be in the digital world, but be in the real world performing, and actually taking a drawing from an architect and a set designer and just actually doing it and seeing how is this to perform in the headlights of a car. I would like to suggest that we perhaps do a very quick round and see if we can do it within the 5 minutes that we have left of a last thought from everyone, if that's okay. So I'm going to start with Katie.
I'm not sure I have like one final thought. It's just been really interesting hearing what everyone has to say. It's really inspiring.
Sorry, my microphone was off. Dee?
Well, thanks. That was really great conversation. Thanks very much. I suppose just one thing, I've just had a text from one of our performers who's very interested in working with older people, and I think this is something just to not forget. She says, how can we move forward without leaving people behind? Because there's all these things, reopening, but it's not reopening for everyone. And I just think to remind ourselves of that as we celebrate this, you know, this blossoming that, I know it's a bit of downer, but I think we need to bring everyone with us to be fully an inclusive circus.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thank you. Marianne?
I would be really interested if anyone would like to do some online collaboration and idea sharing about actual project, because we all work very much in our own little isolated companies, and while we're not worrying about stepping on each other's toes and in getting each other's gigs, why don't we share some ideas and yeah, work together.
Thanks, a great idea. Leila?
Am I muted? Oh,
No, you're fine.
Brilliant. Hi. Sorry about the obvious chaos in the background. I guess a couple of thoughts, which are, I know, I think most of you, I don't know if you know, I've been working at the Arts Council for the last year, and we've been working on the emergency response funds. And one of the things that someone pointed out kind of a few weeks into this that I thought that I've been able to relate to when reading various different applications is that people are at different points on the kind of grief and acceptance curve, and people who are going, why isn't everything exactly as it was? I need to continue in the way, you know, the Aedin, the people you're talking about in the rehearsal space in Sweden, are probably quite early on in that state of acceptance and not really kind of come round to the fact that lots of things have changed. Whereas you can see people kind of moving through it and coming out the other side and actually responding really brilliantly to the limitations, the necessary limitations that this period has brought us. And I'm beginning to see some quite incredible work. And for example, I love Aaron's animations that he's been putting up on Facebook that I think are so beautiful and a creative response to creating work on their own and within, you know, this strange time. So yeah, and it's also really exciting to hear that there are things coming out of it that you would take kind of going into the new period anyway. So like Vicky's saying about, and you know, maybe this is how you might start a creative process in the future. And yeah, I kind of like today, although this will probably change in about half an hour, today I feel quite hopeful.
Leila.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to say that we're about to be booted in 10 seconds, and I didn't want to get you like cut off before we said goodbye to each other. So everybody, see you in the main session.
Somewhere you